So as you settle into your seat, think about building that stable alignment up through the spinal column. Let the shoulder girdle broaden. Maybe let your eyes close. Just be at ease with your breath. Give ourselves about 60 more seconds just to settle in here. There's this huge raven just gliding over the tree line in a forest. As it travels, the trees themselves end up offering updrafts of wind. And so it's playing freely in those updrafts, bouncing along in a constant full glide. When it feels appropriate for you, we can allow the eyes to open if they're closed. Let's take a finger interlace. So palms up-ish. We're going to extend the arms out in front of us. Palms can be towards us. And then retract back those humeral heads. Think about integrating the shoulders, and we'll just inhale the arms up and overhead. And then once you get your arms up and overhead, and this is, it doesn't have to be fully extended overhead, just where it feels comfortable for you. Let's turn our gaze over towards the left. And then we'll relax back to neutral. And we'll turn our gaze over towards the right. And we'll relax back to neutral. Release the hands down. Let the palms fall facing up. And then let's turn the gaze over towards the left. If you can find a little bit more space, a little bit more freedom in the shoulders. We'll relax back to neutral. And we'll turn our gaze over towards the right. Thinking about that shoulder girdle space. And then relax. Back to neutral. Let's inhale let's interlock the fingers once again. We'll inhale the hands together. That works. And we're going to extend those arms up and overhead. And with an inhale, let's just lift our chin towards the ceiling. Keep the arms overhead and exhale and let your chin fall to the sternum. And inhale back to neutral. We'll release the palms so that they can fall face up. And then we'll inhale the chin up. And exhale the chin down. And let's come back to neutral. We'll just transition to hands on the tabletop. So establishing your base position at tabletop, playing those fingers out nice and wide. Really think about the stability that the arms can provide here. And don't allow that stability to be all dependent on the heels of the hand. So think about an engaged arm structure and then fingers activating. And then let's start to walk our right hand out towards the space in front of us. Try to keep your hips anchored, so kind of energetically anchored in space there. And then we'll come back to tabletop and just glide back into child's pose. And as you sink back into that child's pose space, think about that lateral line that you extended with the right hand. And really settle into the depth of this child's pose. And then when it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves back into tabletop. Once again, establish the strength of our arm structures, fingertips engaged, and then we're going to walk that left hand out without allowing the hips to come forward. Really think about being anchored there so we can draw all of this length in our rib cage and our intercostal musculature. And then we'll come back to tabletop and sink back into child's pose. Settle once again. Try to feel the torso space that we've already crafted for ourselves. And think about just settling down into that torso space. Give yourself just 15 more seconds here as we settle. Pull ourselves back into tabletop. Once again, set that structure of the arms, and then we're just going to alternatingly walk our hands out until we feel a little of that rib cage pull. You don't need to get as much as you had on the single side, but get some of that rib cage pull, engage the fingertips, and then sink the tailbone back. Head can come down if that feels appropriate for you. Tailbone's likely not going to make it all the way back into the shape, right? Depending on how far forward your arms made it. But really anchor the hands as you settle back here into this torso space. And then we'll relax the arms, let them come back, and let your body sink all the way into that child's pose. This time, really think about the lumbar neutralizing and getting the full depth that's available to you in child's pose. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. We'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way back into down dog. And then let's walk forward and into fold. We'll inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Let the entirety of the shoulder girdle relax. Try to feel that thoracic spine musculature working against and in between the ribcage. Just elongate as the head falls into the fold. And then let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, making our way into mountain. And from mountain, we'll inhale our hands together. Our heart center. Splay the fingers out nice and wide so we get the hands to really feel their full width. And then keeping the palms of the hands together, extend your arms out in front of you. Fingers are still wide, so you have a lot of hand activity. With an inhale, we're going to sweep the arms up and overhead. If the shoulders don't allow you to go fully up and overhead, stay arms elongated. Don't bend the elbows here. So maybe we only get a little partial lift, but maybe we're overhead. And then relax the hands back to heart center and feel the torso and the shoulder girdle broaden and relax as the musculature comes to ease. And then let's keep the palms together and extend the arms out in front of us again. And just follow the arms forward into a fold, keeping those palms together. So half lift-ish, and then lift yourself to half lift, fingertips pointed straight down. Now squeeze the humeral heads back into their place and note how the core responds to that. Think about how interrelated that upper abdominal band and your shoulder retraction are, and then relax all the way into fold. Use that release of the upper torso to get more depth into your fold. And then let's plant our hands and we'll walk our way back into down dog. And pedal your heels out a little bit here. So alternating our weight distribution. And as you're pedaling, think about where the weight is in relation to your hips, in relation to the hands and the feet, and try to drive as much weight as is possible back into the feet, up into the hips, so that the lower half of the body is doing our work here, which is harder when we're moving our feet. And then we'll come down to hands and knees tabletop. And once again, flip the tops of the feet and sink into child's pose. The bottom edge of the shoulder girdle here, right below the scapula or at that scapular shelf. Really think about relaxing all the way down to that scapular shelf. And feel those cycles of respiration as they impact that union between the thoracic and lumbar spine and the entirety of this shoulder girdle. And then when it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From tabletop, let's bring our right knee into the middle of our mat and extend our left foot straight back and behind us. Right hand's gonna come in line with the right knee, so we have a midline stability, and we'll just ground the left heel and open that left hand up towards the ceiling to start here. Then we're gonna slowly splay the fingers out and keep the thumb pointing down as you extend that left hand towards the front of your room. And then push into the lateral edge of your left foot. So we're really building length along this whole lateral chain into that shoulder girdle. And then bring the arm back up and overhead. And see if it feels accessible to bring that behind you. And then, so the back of the hand is up against the back of the back, palm away from you. And retract this shoulder capsule so that we get nice full integration. And then maybe we can even turn our gaze up towards the ceiling. We'll unwind and release the left hand down to the mat. Bring our hands and knees back to their side of the mat. So we come into a traditional tabletop, then curl your toes and roll back into down dog. And build that elongation of spine. Think about all of this torso space that we've worked into the first quarter of class here, and really transition that into the elongation of the spinal column. And then we'll come down to hands and knees tabletop. We'll bring our left knee to the middle of the mat, extend the right foot, left hand to the middle of the mat, right heel grounds, right hand reaches towards the ceiling, splay the fingers out wide, and then extend that right hand towards the front of your room. As you do so, push into the lateral edge, pinky toe edge of your right foot and get this elongation along the lateral chain. And then we extend back up. The hand comes behind us, palm away to the small of the back. And then maybe we can turn that gaze up towards the ceiling here. Retract that shoulder capsule, find integration of the shoulder. And then we unwind, right hand comes down, hands come back to their side of the mat, knees come back to their side of the mat, curl the toes, lift the seat and find down dog. Get that length. Super easy to lose the finger mound and fingerprint energy here. And to be all on the heels of the hands because we have a little instability from fatigue in the shoulders, drive the weight back into the hips, and then let's walk ourselves forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift, and then exhale back into fold. Settle here, grab opposite elbows and rock a little side to side. And so as this raven is continually just playing with these updrafts off of the trees, eventually there's a break. The trees start to thin, and there's a little village below it. We'll drift our awareness to our sacrum, and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming back in a mountain, bringing our hands together at heart center, splaying those fingers out wide. As you do that, note that it can be super easy to collapse the shoulders. So fingers wide, shoulders broad, and then we'll step our left foot back into lunge. Keep the palms together as you extend the arms towards the ceiling. This time, if you don't feel like full extension is available from the shoulders, you can bend the elbows. And then smooth into that front quad. And we'll drop the hands to heart center, and we'll extend the arms out in front of us. And then once the arms get all the way extended, step forward and retract the hands and breathe in the mountain. When it feels appropriate, second foot, right foot slides straight back. Settle first, and then we'll keep the palms together and extend the arms skyward. Then smooth into that front quad. And we'll bring our hands together at heart center before we extend the fingers towards the front of the room. Once they get to that fully extended point, we'll step forward, sweep the arms up and overhead, and exhale to forward fold. And then inhale into half lift. And exhale back into fold. Plant your hands and we'll walk our way back into down dog. And then come down to hands and knees tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Almost in unison as the trees clear beneath the raven, the sun gets into this perfect position. It starts shining through this little pebble, this little stone that it has in between its beak. And the sun is just shining off of this stone, and it's glimmering in the sunlight, and it's beautiful. Last 10 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From tabletop, we'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. And let's walk forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale into fold. We'll slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Ground our left heel and bring our right hand to the medial edge, big toe edge of the right foot. Let's take our left hand into side angle. And then release the left hand down. Spin the left heel up and extend the right hand towards the front of your rib. At the same time, push back into that left heel and flex your left quad so you take the bend out of the knee. Then release your right hand and step your left foot forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide your right foot straight back and into lunge. Round your right heel, bring your left hand to the medial edge, big toe edge, and take your right hand into side angle. Settle. When you feel balance, let your right hand come down, your right heel spin up, and extend your left arm towards the front of the room. Push back into that right heel and think about the strength in your back leg. And the left hand comes down to the mat and we'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Let your hands connect with your legs. And just with the encouragement of your hands, bring your torso closer to your thighs. So that can be on your heels, your ankles, your calves, your hamstrings, anywhere that allows you to get just a little bit closer. Yeah, beautiful. Release, and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming all the way up and into mountain. Bringing our hands together at heart center. Letting your eyes close for a breath or two, if that's available to you. And then allowing the eyes to open if they're closed. We'll push the seat back into chair. Keep the hands at roughly heart center, and then we're gonna tilt our torso down so that it hovers just an inch or two over our thighs. Sweep the arms behind you and extend the crown of the head as you squeeze the shoulder blades up towards the ceiling. Release the hands down to the mat. And let's walk back into down dog. Come down to hands and knees tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and let's sink into child's pose once again. Just finding our ability to breathe. Last 15 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Hands and knees tabletop, curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. And extend your right leg straight back and behind you, three-legged dog. And we'll step our right foot forward into lunge. Round our left heel and let our left hand bring us up into warrior two. As you settle into your warrior two, really pay attention to how that front leg is aligned with the midline. We really want to make sure we're settled there. And then peel open. And we'll bring our hands from traditional two to heart center. The lateral edge, right lateral edge, is going to come down and hover over that front thigh. So tilting our way forward. And then if it's accessible, we're going to extend those arms towards the front of our room. Really get some torso length here. Also really have to work this oblique musculature. And then we'll come back into two. Think about how that back hip has to work. And then spin your left heel down, or left hand down, left heel up. And we'll step the right foot back into down dog. And pedal out the calves a little bit here. Then rebalance your weight and send your left leg straight back into three-legged dog. Then we'll step our left foot forward into lunge. Right heel grounds, right hand takes us to 2. We settle. Think about how that front leg provides the stability and how we want that to be aligned. And then we can bring our hands together at heart center. The lateral line on the left side is going to come down and hover. And then if it's accessible, we'll extend those arms out in front of us. Thinking about how much space we can give our torso here. When you feel balanced, we'll come back into 2. Right hand spins down, right heel spins up, and we'll step our left foot back into down dog. Shift your weight forward to plank, and then lower yourself down through chaturanga and onto your belly. Flip the tops of the feet. Squeeze the elbows in towards one another. And just pause for a moment here. Thinking about where you're not optimizing the length of your spine. So is the cervical spine completely elongated? Is there any space left in the thoracic spine? Is there any neutrality expansion available in the lumbar spine? And then once you feel like you're maximally elongated, let's bring our hands onto our sacrum, palms up, making a little diamond shape, so thumbs and index fingers together. If that doesn't feel accessible to you, you can go more towards the lateral edge, or you can just keep the hands on top of the hamstrings, pushing straight down. Then we're gonna lift the elbows to shoulder height and lift the forehead maybe 1/4 of an inch off of the mat. At the same time, we wanna think about neutrality and the capacity to breathe on that front side, our anterior side of our body. Press down into the tops of the feet so that you're anchored. And then relax and slide your hands underneath your forehead for a little crocodile pose. And just be at ease here in crocodile. The raven swoops down and it lands on this second-story windowsill. Inside, there's this little boy getting ready for bed. And the raven with its beak just taps on the glass once, drops the petal, drops the pebble, and then flies off into the horizon. The little boy saw this raven knock on the glass, saw it drop something on the windowsill, so he runs over, he rips open the window, and sure enough, there's this incredibly beautiful stone. He picks it up and he's holding it up, and the sun is shining in as it's setting, and he's just looking at this beautiful rock in his hand, and he's enthralled with it. Last 15 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, as it feels appropriate. Let's slide our hands back underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. And from tabletop, let's curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way into down dog. And then we'll walk forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Sweep or roll our way into mountain. Bring our hands together, heart center. Slide our left foot straight back into lunge. We'll ground our left heel. And you can keep the hands at heart center, but have the legs craft a warrior two. Then we're going to slide back into that front hamstring. So we prep a traditional triangle. I guess atypical triangles. We don't have the arms set up. We're going to take the arms out of the shape and we're just tilting the torso. So pouring the teapot here. Hands at heart center. We take that lean, looking to get this lateral line parallel-ish with the floor. Right? If we just extend the arms, we're in traditional triangle. And then we'll draw ourselves back up and blossom into two. So front knee bends as we extend the arms. Think about what's going on with the knee positioning so that we find our alignment and hold it. And then we'll spin that left heel up and we'll find crescent. Drive back, make sure your torso stays neutral. And then we'll drop the hands to heart center and step to the front of the mat. Breathing in your mountain here. When it's appropriate for you, the right foot's going to slide straight back. Sweep the arms and crescent. And then we'll ground the right heel, drop the hands to heart center. Make sure you have the appropriate positioning for that front knee, not collapsing in, not rolling out, but really in line. And then we're going to slide back into the left hamstring and stay at heart center as we tilt our way forward, thinking about getting this lateral line parallel-ish with the floor. And then we'll draw ourselves back up, blossom into warrior two. Knee stays integrated and in line. Right heel spins up, we're into crescent. Drop the hands and we'll step to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead and exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, we'll walk into down dog. Down to hands and knees, tabletop. Lift the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. We just breathe here. Fluid, full respiration. Last 15 seconds. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. We'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog. Come up onto our tiptoes and we'll tiptoe our way forward. Staying on your tiptoes as you inhale into half lift. And then dropping the heels and your torso back into fold. We'll roll or sweep up into mountain. Bring our hands together, heart center. Slide your left foot straight back and into lunge. Ground your left heel and roll to warrior two. Take the right forearm to your right thigh. That left hand extends straight up first, and then palm facing towards the floor, extend your left hand towards the front of your room. Push back into the lateral edge, pinky toe edge of your left foot, and roll your left shoulder blade back. Think about that torso space as you breathe. And then we'll come up into warrior two. Settle there. Spin your left heel up into crescent. Drop the hands and step to the front of the mat. And we breathe here. Right foot slides straight back. Ground that right heel as you roll to two. Really think about building that space. Left forearm to left thigh. Right hand reaches towards the ceiling first. Then the palm down, we extend that right hand towards the front of our room. Push into that pinky toe edge, lateral edge of your right foot. And roll that right shoulder back. Let's transition back into two. Settle there. Right heel spins up. We're into crescent. Hands drop and we step to the front of the mat. Sweep the arms up and overhead. And exhale through fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk into down dog. Tabletop, flip the tops of the feet and glide back into child's pose. Oh, just finding our ability to breathe here. Last 30 seconds. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. And we'll extend our legs right out in front of us for staff. Get the spine nice and tall. Interlace the fingers in front of us once again. Extend the hands towards the front of the room. And then with an inhale, let's take the hands up towards overhead. If this doesn't work this time, we can bend the elbows. So if you don't feel like you have that full shoulder capacity, just bend the elbows, try to create some more space. Or alternately, you can stay more forward. And then we're gonna exhale out into a fold. And you can release that finger interlace. Breathe here. Give ourselves 30 more seconds. Last exhale. See if there's any additional space available to you here. And then we'll bring ourselves back up into a vertical spine. And let's head onto our backs. Nice work. And as you land here, first time on your back, think about how your body feels against the mat. And let's inhale our knees into a bent position if they're not already there. We'll let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. And we'll breathe here. And so this little boy takes this little stone, he runs downstairs, he shows his parents, and his heart is just bursting with joy at this stone. It's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen in his life. He has a hard time falling asleep because he keeps looking over on the nightstand where he set the stone to make sure it's still there. But eventually he does drift off. The next day he wakes up, he grabs a stone, he puts it in his pocket. He goes downstairs. He keeps checking in his pocket to make sure it's there. Eventually he heads off to school. He starts showing everyone that he knows, everyone that he meets along the way to school, this beautiful stone. He's just brimming with pride. Last 20 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back. In neutral. Think about finding balance. Think about how the sacrum feels, how the lumbar feels, how the thoracic spine feels, how the cervical spine feels. And then let's start to add a little dynamic sway. The rate at which you're moving is completely determined by what is benefiting you the most here. We've done some lateral line work, so maybe you're feeling that as you get into the full capacity of your twist. Or maybe you're feeling more spacious. But really explore here. And the next time that the knees fall over to the left, let's let them settle there so that we land in a static twist that feels supportive on our body. Before class starts, little boy showing everybody in the classroom his most prized possession, smiling from ear to ear. The teacher walks into the room and he runs up to the teacher and he's showing off the stone. And the classroom is excited. And he's even more excited than everyone else. The teacher starts hushing everyone down. Just calm down, calm down. I have news for everyone. We're going on a field trip. We're going to go explore the banks of the river. And so the class is elated with this news. And they all stand up and they get in their line. And the teacher leads them out of the school and down towards the river. It's a short walk, maybe a half mile away. And this little boy's in the back of the line. He keeps reaching in his pocket and feeling the stone and making sure it's there. And he's pulling it out. And he's admiring it. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And then we'll exhale our knees over to the second side, the right side. We'll land here. Everyone finally arrives down at the river and they all kind of spread out. They're just kind of doing their thing, looking for minnows, the shallows of the river, walking through forest that lines the riverbank. And the little boy just keeps reaching into his pocket and pulling out his stone and then putting it back away. He pulls it out one time and his finger catches on the lip of his pocket and it knocks the stone from his hand and it falls down into this little muddy spot. And it's covered in mud and he picks it up and it's just lost its shine. He takes this muddy stone and he heads down to the river to wash it off. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And as the knees come back to neutral, we'll ask ourselves if there's anything that we might want, need, or would benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there is, we'll offer that to ourselves now. If we have everything we need, if we're ready for stillness, then let's drift our way into stillness. Into our version of Shavasana. And just be at ease here. The little boy dips his hand down into the river to wash the stone off, and the water is shockingly cold. It instantly numbs his fingers. And his pebble, his little small stone, falls from his hands. And he reaches down and he pulls up a huge clump of stones from the bottom of the river. Let's let our body be completely at ease here. So this little boy has this scoop of rocks as he reached down and tried to grab his stone. And he's looking through and he's throwing rock after rock after rock out of his hand because they're not his. And he frantically gets through the end and he scoops up more and he's throwing rocks and he's throwing rocks and he's throwing rocks and he's going through handful after handful after handful. But none of them are his. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. And tears start to fall. He starts to panic as he looks at the bottom of the river and sees that there's millions of stones. And the teacher starts to call for everyone to go back. We'll move into our wrists and our ankles. But he's just scooping and scooping and going through stone after stone after stone and failing to find his. Movement up into your elbows and your knees. Everyone else is in line except for him, and the teacher comes over and says, "We need to go." Movement into your shoulders and your hips. And he says, "No, I've lost my stone, and it's here somewhere, and I can't leave it." Movement into your neck and your head. Jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves. And we'll utilize that movement to transition our way back into a seat. And she reaches down and she pulls up a handful of stones. And she's holding it up. And for the first time, this little boy sees the way that the sun is glimmering off of these stones in her hand. And she has this handful of the most beautiful stones he's ever seen. Letting your spine get tall, your breath get fluid, and your eyes close. And he realizes in this moment that he's surrounded by the most beautiful things he can imagine. We'll inhale our hands together, heart center. And over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that it can be far too easy to hold on to one thing so tightly that we lose sight of all the opportunities around us. And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being with me here on this holiday week. I hope you have a beautiful, festive week, and I'll be back on Sunday to recharge. Love you. Mwah.